Bravehearts, Urbanites, Coach Mad Hatters, Urban Creatrix, Crimson Velvet VIPs. Welcome to my Tuesday, 3:54 p.m. DMV Standard Time. And just in case you didn't know, DMV stands for DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And there's a lot of things popping inside of this metropolis right at the moment. Some things are wonderful. I mean, when I say oh, so wondrous, it honestly is. And then some things still remain the fuckery that it is. I have finally got my mind around exactly what it is that I want to say regarding my sentiments. Yeah, my sentiments. They're my sentiments because right now we honestly don't know what is facts. And I'm continuing to observe the energies as they permeate through us as we are learning new things and unlearning other things. How we are mixing and mingling the past, the present, and the potentialities of the future. And how we are understanding that for the most part, much of what we have heard, read, saw, seen, bear witness to somehow, some way was influenced by the falsehood that said Black folk were citizens. And right at the moment, it might feel like what I just said in conjunction with what I am about to talk about, which is my opinion around sacred sensuality. It may seem far-fetched between the two, as if the stretch of the Nile River is between us seeing ourselves as actual citizens and how it somehow links to what I consider to be sacred sensuality. This is what I'm noticing. There are not enough people talking about the deeply rooted influences around being considered a society's product. And so, one of my challenges, which I will invite you to do right now, is to begin digging into your Sankofa bag. Go back and get it. Go back and look into those nooks and crannies and highlight for yourself where it said Afro melanated folks on American soil were citizens, are citizens, actual American citizens. And yes, it is a tender, touchy subject. But if we don't begin there, everything else that I talk about is not going to make any sense, which I'm cool with. Let's get that straight right here, right at the giddy up. I'm cool with that because everyone looked at me weird at the brink of 2019 when I said there's an energy coming through and it's going to require you to get home, be home. It's going to require you to light up that fourth chamber chakra. The heart is where the home is. And I had no idea that it was going to morph into what it is. But I kept saying, and I have YouTube receipts. And even today, many will say, are you bummed out because your viewing numbers are so low? Indeed not, because I didn't throw it up there for views per se. I threw it up there so that it could be easily and readily accessible when I get in these streets talking to people and conversing and exchanging ideas, that it would be easily and readily available so that I don't have to try to stuff everything into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different conversations, that I actually can pique curiosities and then send them to my channel. So no, I'm not going to open up the comments. No, I am not going to be begging folks to like and subscribe. That throws me off. That right inside, right at the threshold of the video, folks is talking about like and subscribe. And it's like, give me a chance to, because I'm not going to be liking stuff that I don't honestly like. And see, that's the part where I say that plays into the vehicle, that plays into the thing that throws us off when it's time for us to get into those sacred pockets. Somehow, some way, the American constituency is always being led by the nose with stuff. And I said it multiple times inside of my Journey by Heart series. I kept saying, and especially when I was equating it to the never ending story, I kept saying, there is something that is coming through that is of ancient femininity, and it's not playing no games with us. It is coming to shake up the way we love. We are no longer just only tapping into logic. And because for so long we have been groomed and conditioned to believe that your emotionality doesn't matter, now we're being forced to go back and make up with our inner childs. We are being forced to go back and make up with the inner child of significant others and loved ones. We are actually being charged with a different quality of patience and understanding. And to just write somebody off because they quote unquote toxic. Get the fuck out of here. We're all connected. I have a significant, as a matter, I was about to say I have a significant other, but as a matter of fact, I have many significant others. And I think some will probably be quite surprised at what I consider sacred sensuality, because many will consider me a mystery. I don't share much. And if I am sharing with you, it's because you are already part of my heart chamber. I understand that it is a golden right for me to remain silent. That's golden to me. And I don't take that for granted. I have the right to remain silent. And sometimes it's more for the other person than it is for me. Inside of this silence is where you become in tune with your heart and what your heart honestly wants. This is a new thing for the heart, especially for the Black heart, the Afro melanated heart, the non-physical essence of that heart. This is a new thing because that particular heart has always been the one that's been dismissed, never the one chosen, unheard, unseen, unfelt. And so it began to gain these metaphorical calluses, always being rubbed the wrong way. Pun intended. Let me just hold up. Let me say this real quick, real quick. I'm gonna throw this in here, and I want you to, if you will, accept it and let it run in the background as I continue to talk. If you're dealing with someone with a clitoris, please, please. And this is not, I'm telling you, this is not a personal, this is not, these are not personal shots. Just so, because folks get finicky when they hear your recording a couple days later, they swear you talking about them. Not always. And the reason why I throw this in there more often than not is because I have to keep reminding people that I am a conversationalist. Both of my two major careers, a hairstylist and nonprofit member services, supervisor of a call center, I was always speaking with folks, which gave me the privilege of understanding different dynamics and gaining this sensibility of diversity. It is not that bullshit you see on the pamphlets. I promise you. So when I speak this, I am speaking to bring sensibility around certain things that are not always comfy to speak about. Let me say this: if you're dealing with somebody with a clitoris, especially if you're dealing with somebody with a vintage clitoris, wash your hands, keep your hands soft, and move in slow, circular, deep motion. If she gives you the instruction to speed it up, continue to speed it up in circular motions. Don't go back and forth. That's too much friction. Soft. Your touch can be soft, but it can have pressure to it. But just make sure it has a rhythm and it's in circular motions. And you don't even have to stay right there on the nub. You actually you can massage the whole entire. How about this? I'll give you a challenge. Take your palm. Instead of using your fingers, take your palm. Take your whole palm. Your fingers should lay right on that little pillow. I don't know what it's called, but that little hump, that little the camel toe, that pillow part. Let your hand rest there and just slowly but knead it with the palm of your hand. And like you can actually take it between your two fingers and you can rub up and down, but do not go left to right, left to right, left. Don't do that shit. And the incredible part is I've had so many women get into conversations to me with me about some of the things that they wish they could tell their partner, but they honestly don't want that awkward part of when folks think you're trying to correct them. So that was the so now I'm getting ready to get back to the regularly scheduled programming, which is all programming. Remember, it is all fucking programming. We are impressionable sponges. So Dr. Joy DeGruy, inside of her book, and you know what? I have to say, you know what? I haven't seen my hard copy in a while, but I have moved some things around. But I'm just noticing, and that's one of the books that I keep close. I'm always referring to that book, and I'm if it's feeling like I haven't seen it in over a month. Um, Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy. Inside there, she speaks about, in numerous of her lectures and interviewing conversations, she speaks quite a bit about us not reconciling the energies that came from being bred and sold. I want to sit in that and unpack it for just a moment and take us to the place where we truly understand any type of sensual engagement as energy driven, and that there are all sorts of synergy factors that go into the act or even the thought of. It amazes me how you, when I say you, I'm talking us as a collective or the individual, how one can even see the act and become energetically engaged. That's how powerful this thing is. But if you have a people who had been at gunpoint most often or under some type of strenuous adherence, they have to be fucking and pumping out babies back to back to back to back. It is literally a commodity. There was no, I don't feel like it. I got a headache. Where's the anesthesiologist? My feet are swollen. I got cravings. I got morning sickness. It's none of that. So if you have all this sexual energy, and then all of a sudden, and I'm talking about as a people, as a collective, you have all of this sexual energy because you have been forced to literally birth a nation. Whether you were considered a sexual creature or not, it was your job to fuck and have babies and tiller the land and harvest the crops and plant the seeds and sweep the floors. And not only were you responsible to fuck to have more slaves, but then you had to fuck Massa. And sometimes, all dependent on Massa's mistress, if she went and eat both ways, you had to fuck her too. And we're no longer going to be saying that because we don't know no better, because there are ways, many, many ways. Even if you talking to different people and gathering different opinions, there are many ways to get hip to some shit now. You don't even have to be the researcher type. There are loads of evidence that says with each sexual encounter, there's a buildup of energy. There's a release of energy. There's a flow, an ebb and flow of energy. But most of it is in direction. It's usually in, it's how do I want to say this? It goes in Congress with one's ability to direct these energies in and out of oneself. If you are in sexual energy overload, and we never talk about that. We never talk about the residual of energies, especially sexual energies, that came along with being a entire society's breeding farm, breeding laborers, workers, almost to the point where it makes me feel like not only can you not patch up the dam, and we're talking about the dam of energy flow, of central energy flow, you now have this thing where reproduction is turbo. And so now those that socially engineered that portion of history have a lineage of offspring now dealing with the lineage of the bread. So the breeders and the bread. Now in this day and time, it's the offsprings that are dealing. So the the offsprings of the plantation holders and the colonialists and all of those folks, the offspring of those folks versus the offspring of those that were forced to fuck and breed a new nation, the offspring of those folks. Now, bring it forward to the day where everybody figured that they're free. And what that honestly means when it's time for two people to get together, when it's time for two people to try to relate to one another, when there are, like Dr. Joy say, a preponderance of evidence that shows that we are still trying to fly with one wing. And you wrap that all up in the everyday frustrations. And another thing she brings light to, the urban, oh wow, I want the urban nuisances. It's escaping me right now exactly the term that she used, but I think that's what she calls it. And that's the sirens all through the night, the gunshots all through the night, being packed in buildings where they not only are they not clean, but they are just completely atrocious. Trash not coming to get picked up for weeks on end, all that kind of stuff. Insecurities, plague, central, sacred, chemistry. And I will tap into the cosmos just for a moment, just to say that it is not as simplistic as your sun sign, and it is no way, shape, form, or fashion connected to the mainstream lens of how we are cosmically compatible. And that this and that is true, all depending on the point of view. There are some things that are naturally at odds, and one side can't tell the other side that it somehow is not appropriately vetted and validated because its angle is short-sighted. Because we literally are dealing with the adversities that are brewing up between those that only know suburban life and those that only know the street life. That street life, because there's no way I can go. And I know that's not the words, but still, street life is the only way I know, the only life I know. Yeah, jam it. You can also get the lyrics. That's how easy it is to get your hands on whatever it is that you may be curious about these days. In some people's world, food is central. In another person's or people's world, rhyme and rhythm, bass in the congos is foreplay. Real quick, just a brief story time, real quick. And I might have mentioned this before. Out of my entire 50 years, this earthling lifetime, I have only had one boyfriend that I danced with. When I say danced, meaning that he danced just like I danced. And then see, there's a difference with those that dance when they have somebody to dance with and those that'll dance regardless. I would bust a move in the grocery store if the music was right. That was just the kind of person I am. And I don't care who's looking. And then on the flip side of this is another thing that I can say. I could be in a seriously grumpy mood. And if I come across somebody who's just dancing, it instantly lifts my mood. I love to see it, engage in it. I love the rhythm of the beat. You know, DeBarge came to my mind, right? Did DeBarge come to your mind when I said that? And that has always been me from me being a little pea pod. When the music is on, yeah. So it's even get to the point that now in my older years, or then my midlife, my meridian, I'm right in my meridian right now. Sometimes I will speak in song selection. So here's another fun fact. I've only had one significant other that would indulge me in speaking through song titles. We used to have this thing going where in the middle of a conversation, or if it fit the pun, or if it was able to drive the point home, the title of the song, or like what I just did, you just start singing the lyrics, and whatever it is that you are trying to present actually threads itself together. And I say all of that to say that sacred sensuality is a succession sometimes. And sometimes it can be totally present without any physical accommodation. And it has nothing to do with lust. Now, lust can be an enhancer, but it is not a requirement. I know some women that they love to just watch their men work. Their man is a photographer or a barber or a poet or a musician. And it not only prides them to see their master craft. And I'm not talking master in this subservient bullshit. I'm talking the person that they are dealing with have already embraced the fact that they are a master of their life being their craft, and they have become masters of their master craft. Not masters of another human being, masters of themselves. When you become a master of yourself, you literally have no hypocritical energy, meaning that you are not going to go judge or browbeat someone for doing something that you know you too have indulged in. Because you have a firm understanding that just as unique as your walk, so is theirs. That's why I'm getting into this phenomenon called the quest bait. Not necessarily doing Europeanized matrimonies or even the way that it's been situated for us to date and the whole one person like one to one. And that's always seemed weird for me, mainly because I used to say, and this was totally personal, totally out of my pain, but I used to say, why do men get married when they know that they like variety? Why do they do that to themselves? Why are we constantly showering our girls with this fantasy about this pricey ass production? Because that's what wedding ceremonies are these days. They pricey ass productions. It still amazes me how women speak about marriage versus how men speak about marriage. Everything that would always present itself as a problem of marriage, I would always think to myself that it was a result of us being broken out of our tribal mindsets because there was no cheating and there was no violations because you have this, that, and the third going on. There wasn't any of this, I'm now with you. And so now I can't have acquaintances anywhere else. And if I am having acquaintances anywhere else, I'm fucking them. Like it's a whole bunch of stuff that weighs on the sacred sensibilities of folks becoming in union. And why is it so muddy? Well, I figure that it has a lot to do with all of the residual energies that have not been able to flow and clear and reconcile. And now we're looking at it now as transmuted insecurities, which is still energies in motion. It is still part of the emotionality motif. It's all wrapped up in there. Yeah, it's in there. It's all in there. So, what does it mean? And how can we begin to deal with one another and understand the baggage? Because, see, they bamboozled the fuck out of us, making us think that you can now tell folks, don't show up with no baggage. You got all this baggage. And they began to put this insidious undertone on having baggage when if you black folk, you got baggage, you got brand name. And I am being literal, because they used to brand Black folk. You got brand name baggage. And if you're carrying the last name of a European, you still carrying your brand name baggage. So for us not to no longer make way for this to come into the room. Because see, when we started telling folk that they couldn't show up with their baggage, they started becoming very clever at hiding the baggage. And then Jordan Peele comes out with a movie called Us that really lays it all out on the line. You stuff it, if you energetically stuff it down, it's going to find its way to creep back up. Why? Because we've been socially conditioned to believe that anything that is low vibratory is somehow bad. I swear, I wish that everyone would go back to the drawing board. That's the richest part of the whole fucking shebang. Inside the darkness of the soil is where things morph and grow and enrich and multiply and extend and expand. But when you're living in an anti-yin society, it's going to always tell you to look up. And I personally am stumped with how it is that we are using this thing called negative and positive without associating it with what I am finding. It is not just in Western points of view, but it seems like it's energetically universal to understand that the lower level vibratory frequencies is dense. The root chakra and below the root chakra is not to play with. It is a very dense atmosphere. It is very black. It is very chaotic. It is very primordial and unpredictable. And that's usually the archetypal natures of femininity, period, because it is the one that receives. So it's always got a lot going on. And not only is it naturally positioned to receive, but then this outward requirement to produce, to push things out of, to incubate, create, and push things out of. So you have all of these things that are mixing and mingling with this frequency that is already divinely chaotic. And then you take this particular frequency through a timeline that requires it to take it in the canal. They got to take it up the canal, got to take it up the ass, got to take it in the mouth, and then always smile and remain cordial, don't have any type of emotional security. None of these things have a place in the mainstream conversation. And I often say, and I will continue to say, it's not a girl guy thing. It is not a man versus woman thing. My friend Prime used to say all the time, I am you and you are me. But he would mainly continue to remind me, I am you. And he wasn't saying it in any type of facetious way, but it was always a friendly reminder of how we were connected, even when I didn't feel that we were. Even when we do not speak on a regular basis, the censorship is there. Keeping that in mind, always direct my attention to how we have been dismissive of the true power of sacred sensuality and how we actually could begin to show up for one another to help begin releasing the channels of such potency. We can no longer walk around here acting like our scrutiny of Big Mama's toxicity still does not run through the veins of those that, even though you are eating right and you take your ass to the gym and your bank account is on fleet. There, and I will say it again and again and again, there is this ancient femininity that has now returned to her domain, the third dimension, and she is tired of the historical natures of women, femininity, girlship, yin magic being shitted on and misrepresented. And she had already promised that she was coming to get the record straight. And many of the hardcore, logical, patriotic alpha bullshit was going to have a problem with it. She already said she came to shake it all up. I noticed that no one is talking about balance. Everybody is talking about love and light and high frequency. And every time I hear that, it just automatically dismisses the feminine, dark, heavy sensibilities of things, which is the way that it has always been carried. Darkness equals evil. Darkness equals evil is what they tell you. Stay away from that darkness. Be fucking scared of your shadows. Oh, don't want to do nothing negative. Negative people, stay away from me. And now that I have had my tender moments with one-on-one conversations with Pluto, and you can call me crazy all you want, I'm telling you, conversations with death is now amongst my most liberating moments because I have a better understanding about this thing called exiting the third dimension and what is always misconstrued about it. Now, I get it. Most of the time, when folks like me, folks that look like me, are in the presence of death, it's never a flow of what's the word? What word is that? It's never a whew, I'm hardly ever stumped for words. Uh, it's hardly ever a smooth transition. And one's expiration date from out of this realm is always presented as if there is nothing going on after the fact versus you now just back to your celestial conscious body versus your flesh embodiment. And that this dimension requires a flesh suit in order for you to experience it. So it comes with the realm. This flesh comes with the realm. And there is no good or bad because one cannot exist without the other. And both are pretty much up for grabs, all depending on how you maneuvering in these streets. And I'm talking about the energetic, metaphorical streets. Not even necessarily metaphysical streets. Because you actually can go through and in and out of non-physical spaces just through the power of your mind and heart. It is not exclusively about the mind, or not the mind that mainstream would have you believe. is the mind. And I'm gonna try not to get too riddling because I'm starting to feel like the Finks, where I just want to throw out a whole bunch of riddles and say, if you don't get it right, you die. And even in the component of me saying that sacred sensuality is all wrapped up in that, because anything that dies emerges a new something. See, that's the part that they failed to tell you about. But the good thing is now you don't even have to rely on them to tell you. Death is transition, and the planet Pluto is responsible for it. If you want to understand what Pluto came to do, all you have to do is go research it through. When I look at and think about and reflect on all of the things that I actually had to sit with and sift through these last 11 years, and I want to say like 90% of it was done alone by myself, sitting in an enclosed room with the heavy weight on me saying, you gotta figure this out for yourself because I'm gonna need you to talk about it. And I'm not exactly sure who's who. I'm believing at the moment it was Pluto. And see, that makes people a little weird because Pluto has been named Hades and it's been named Satan, it's been named the devil, and it's all through a religious motif. Even tarot readers, when I sit in front of tarot readers, it drives me crazy when the context gets stuffed into this right or wrong morality thing. But then I have to realize America is a religious construct. It was built off of religiosity. So you're going to have these leading religions that are carrying the narrative, and everything else is heathenism. I used to always say, you either righteous or you wretched. Do you not believe that has something to do with your sensuality or how you look at sensuality, how you approach or embrace your sensuality? I am in awe with people who are sexually free, and it doesn't matter if they male or female. And I always say things don't have to get as raggedy as folks be making it out to be, because those that are emotionally free, when they become engaged with someone, they say, this is how I am. You either with it or you're not. And if you're not, there is no love lost. But I'm going to tell you up front, and you make the decision whether you're down with it or not. That is the most responsible thing to me on the planet, because it is fucking weird when someone has to bump into it versus you laying it out in disclosure. And we have gotten to the point where this unreconciled energy brings on a whole bunch of unnecessary shame and blame around sexuality because we are so very slow to make peace with it. And you can't make peace with energy you won't sit down and identify. I've been researching the poly principle, and not because it's a grand thing right now. I had been considering multi how do I say this multi-person matrimonies for a while, because for a while the jam for me was power couples, and I had years ago ran across um, four folks, and I'm saying four folks on purpose because you may be a bit surprised to find out who's who. There were four folks, and all of them had children from other unions. And so, what they knew very early on was that for them to try to maintain life the way they felt was honoring their existence, it was going to be a whole bunch of pushback from others that did not quite understand their rhythm of life. But I say all the time, the heart wants what the heart wants. And the more you don't give the heart what it wants, the more chaotic your life will become. And slowly but surely, you will see the threads getting pulled out of your motif. How do you make space? How do you make space when you find out you married a traditional person who is so set, bent, and bound on the way they see things that they literally will become vindictive to find out that you want to be a little bit more freer with the way you live? So I had begun telling certain people, certain important people in my life that as I move forward, I am now seeking a wife and a husband. And I'm not seeking to get into no legalized agreement matrimonially at all no more. Been there, done that. And I took all my notes. I ain't fuck around. I took all my notes through all my experiences. And me and my daughter was talking about this not too long ago. And she said that she was even coming across uh, articles and commentary that was saying that the weird part about it is if it's two women and a man, that one of the women will always have this thing running in the back of their mind, like, what if he runs off with just her and leave me? That is the law of the land right now, regardless. Legal matrimony does not stop someone from pursuing their heart's desire. So, why do we not loosen the reins a little bit? Why is everything considered cheating? Because I'm gonna tell you this. Let me give you this, and it's the average scenario. So no, this isn't nobody's business. This is everybody's business. Let's say you have a traditional marriage, guy and a girl, and I'm just for the sake of shits and giggles, we're gonna go with the norm and say that the dude runs across someone who is completely mesmerizing. Here's what I say to that thing called cheating. Either he's going to stay loyal to his wife, then that's going to mean that he's now cheating on his heart. Because the one that he finds mesmerizing, his heart wants that. And it doesn't even mean his heart wants that forever. But what it means is that there's something about this anomaly or this enigmatic soul that is calling his. And now he's in turmoil. Now he's perplexed. He has no idea whether he's coming or going because now everything in his world screams that he needs to get closer to this unicorn. He needs to get closer to the unicorn. But the loyalty to his wife says, go to work, come home, provide for the family, do that fake ass date night, and lie to her about what she looked like in her lingerie. Because society has taught the wife that you hold all the cards and that if he get out of line just an iota, we have laws that will clamp up his livelihood to the point he will regret even looking at the unicorn. But yet and still, as souls, as energetic beings, as channels of frequency, there is this thing called cosmic chemistry, and that cannot be fought. So then she's wondering, the wife now is wondering why her husband is disenchanted, why he is not bringing forth the smiles. Like when she walked through the door, he no longer lights up. The calls throughout the day are becoming more infrequent and unpredictable. They're missing gaps in timelines. And the interesting part about it is he hasn't even went towards the unicorn. He is staying completely away from the unicorn because he does not want to cause unnecessary friction with him or her. Because society has told him that once you lock and stock it, you better go on rock it. And I giggle because I always say that marriage or matrimony is usually forced upon people because of what it is that they believe or what it is that they decide that they want to repress and then which transmute into depress. Yeah. And so we now have all of these false matrimonies that now feel like anchors. Ancient divine femininity says, yeah, we're coming to shake all of that up. We are going to put all of your matrimonies through the test. Because you were lied to about the matrimony schematic in the first place. You were lied about it. You were lied to about it. Almost makes me wonder if the energies will come and deal with people on a very intimate one-on-one basis and begin questioning them about what it is that they believe and why they believe it. And why do they feel like once they have reconciled their beliefs and their values to be held or be subjected to any hostage styled scenarios or happenstances or livelihoods. Livelihoods can still feel like imprisonment. All of that twines into how sensuality crosses over into sacred lanes because it's all about the energy, the frequency, and the memory thereof. And I'll say this one thing before I end, and I'm not sure if I'm going to return, but it feels like the conversation is not complete. So I probably will do a follow up to this. But in my personal opinion, when an individual signs on to take on this thing that I've created called the Mystic Fools Shiro Heroes Journaling series, I know that's a mouthful, but it really is necessary. Um, they will find out that this is a tool to help them reconcile self. It's a tool to help them release, even if they can't immediately get out of their situations and circumstances, that they have the proper channeling to be able to begin reconciling. When you begin to energetically reconcile, that's more futuristic than it is anything else. What it also helps them do is come to grips with where they are right now without any blame on it being their fault for where they are when there are so many other aspects of things unfolding that they truly had no control over. Because even if it was their decision to marry, it was not their complete responsibility to how things unfolded inside of that union. There's so many non-physical components going on that are cross-sectioning and morphing and disconnecting and connecting and dying and rebirthing. It's all kinds of things going on. Sometimes that very space that you wish you wouldn't have never gotten into is the very place you're supposed to be for the experience of the thing. So that then you can say, I have an emotional connection to that. then it automatically becomes part of your testimony. And please don't ever, 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 ever lose sight of how powerful pillow talk is. Now, in my opinion, I don't think folks are taking true advantage of such sacred space, but the pillow talk, honey. And it doesn't have to be pillow talk like everybody's just getting up. Here's one of the things that I think is the most powerful, regardless of how many people are in the union. And I'll just say, let's take the king size bed and let's go back to the four people we were talking about. So if spouse one is at the head of the bed, spouse two is at the foot of the bed, spouse three is at the head of the bed, spouse four is at the foot of the bed. So what it automatically do, what this automatically does is set up the frequency flow between these four people to have a yin yang frequency, ebb and flow, in and out, regardless of gender specifics. So even if you want to take it out of that and put it back into the traditional mainstream trajectory, spouse one at the head of the bed, spouse two at the foot of the bed. And if you got some problem with feet and all that kind of stuff, you need to check that. You do. you honestly need to check that, because for spouse one to grab hold of spouse two's feet and vice versa, that brings a hard, energetic grounding that makes a full circle between those two people. It does not work just, it doesn't work just the same when you're holding hands. We are specifically talking about the power of pillow talk and how it could be best utilized, even when you're mad. Even though it's still my opinion that if one is mad, the other should not sleep in the same bed because of the chaotic frequency of energies that are exposed and expelled when you got all of that going on when everybody's asleep or when they are in slumber. But that's a whole nother, yeah. We're not calling this coaches, excuse me, intriguing opinion for nothing. I have intriguing opinions about a lot of things. It's just because I've had conversations with a lot of people. And most of the time when I show up, it's all unconventional. Never been a trendy, traditional mainstream person. And for me to be a Sun Capricorn, it strikes people odd because they want to take the mainstream descriptions about a Capricorn and try to apply it to individuals, and it doesn't work like that. I do have some very strong Saturnine tendencies. Tradition is not one of them. I like the odd, unique, jaw-dropping type stuff. Now, I'm not going to jump out no planes or nothing, but I enjoy folks that do. I can live vicariously through them. So I will challenge, if you find your way to this recording and you make it all the way to this point, I give you a soft challenge, especially if you are uh, regularly engaged with someone or you have a significant other. And it doesn't matter if you are man or woman, and how you sexually identify is all you. It's your business and the one you're dealing with, or the two, three that you're dealing with. Honesty will continue to be the best policy, but honesty does not mean full disclosure of everything. It means rhyme and rhythm. It means that you are seeking out your opportunities to bring or present your truth to another. Because when you present your truth, you have to make sure that the one that's receiving is ready. And some people honestly are not ready for our truths. Let's get that stamped. And in some instances, it's almost worse to render your truth to someone if they are not going to be responsible with it. Responsible with it does not mean that they are not going to have a reaction or that they are to agree or disagree. Nope. First and foremost, Dr. Joy says the word respect means to go back and review. That's what is to relook. That's what respect, and the way she breaks it down, which you can find in any of her conversations, because she says it fluently, that respect is to look again. And that's why Sankofa rings so strong in the way I express myself, because many will say, leave it in the past, it's in the past, let it go, woo, 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 woo. I beg to differ. And if you find yourself wallowing in it, that's because that energy has a hold of you because it wants to speak to you. And if you are bummed out about its presence, it's not going to relay the messages to your consciousness that is needed, which means you wallow even more. I have yet to come across a timeline, a storyline, a love line, a lifeline where the so-called negative energy did not do its thing and hold its weight and go. It's just how we perceive it and what we are constantly told about it, and the way we mix and mingle words. Right now, folks are trying to categorize negative with dissatisfaction. I'm dissatisfied with the way you said what you said, how you said it, who you are, blah, 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 blah. So now you're negative. And no matter which way you define negativity outside of the mainstream lens, it always leads to femininity. I say it outside of the mainstream motif. We are so sun driven that we honestly, and even whether we're conscious of it or not, villainize the moon and all of the power that comes with that. How is it that the moon's energy can be so entwined with our emotionality, and we do not take, even in these strange opportunities, in this stranger times, we don't take the opportunities to see what the moon has to offer, to say, you know what, moon influence, I might have been a little wrong about you. And right now I'm in this mood that I can't explain. And I'll constantly walk around town like I can't explain why I feel the way I feel. And yet and still you have all of this knowledge around the moon's frequency, and we won't even sit down and be with it. Sacred sensuality is all about ebb and flow, literally and figuratively, physically, non-physically. It is all about energetic, synergetic ebb and flow. And if you're dealing with a partner who sits in silence, AKA meditates, who is very in tune with their visuals and their audio, the audios, if they are very in tune with the people, places, and things that they surround themselves with or adjacent themselves with or explore or find out more, then you will bear witness to this ancient energy swarming all in and around this particular channel because it is receptive. And this ancient energy is talking about balance. Like this ancient energy is not even upset about how it's been villainized through historical timelines and on Get Back. It's not even saying, well, you did the bum ass patriarchy thing to an extent that literally made women villains and second class citizens and only worthy of having your babies and slobbing your knobs. Not even realizing that you have someone standing before you that is a direct connect to this frequency. And yes, it wilding out. It wows out sometimes. It's warrior like sometimes. Sometimes it don't mind slobbing your knob. Sometimes it's your endorser, it's your cheerleader, it is your coach, it is your woman, it's your mom, it's your sister, it's your auntie, it's your nana, it's your godmom, it's your professor, it's your attorney. But at the end of the day, it's yours. And it's everybody else's. This and that is true, all dependent on the point of view. We need to do away with this whole mindset that says someone else belongs to you. Ownership of other humans, regardless of what aspect of life is spewing through, is inaccurate and need to be put to rest. Everyone, every single individual on the planet signed up for a particular experience. And I don't mean particular meaning every step has been mapped out, but a particular experience meaning it's still conducive to that particular person. And so when that particular person runs across a unicorn, or if that particular person is the unicorn itself, and there are things inside of an approaching acquaintance that this particular individual wants to seek out and explore, some man made rule ought not interfere with that. And it ought not go down in the rule book as cheating, and it ought not bring forth all of this angst. And trust me, I'm speaking to myself as well because I too am in this mental and emotional boot camp to rearrange the way that I perceive things. I got insecurities all over the place. I don't ignore them anymore though. And anybody I'm dealing with, I don't allow them to use that in some kind of weird way that make me feel worse. I am very open about my insecurities, mainly because I just think that it's part of me and folks will claim they love you and want to be around you, but they honestly does not know what that means, me included. I have folks that I love deeply and never been around them. And that's one of the things I wonder about. I wonder if all of the things that I am working through right now, if we were ever to be in person, would it interfere? Folks are always hollering about get out of your own way. I have yet to hear somebody say exactly what the practical steps to getting that done would look like, feel like, be like. Because we're all working through this thing. And there are new energies that are helping us do that, but it still takes time. Microwavable frequencies kill. And they definitely kill anything that's sacred. So I'm going to end it here. And I think that it was good that I did get on here to make the connection between sacred sensuality and the mystic food's journey, because it's going to play a big part in these journaling series because there's no need to journal if you're not going to be real with yourself. And to journal is not for, well, you know what? I'm not going to say that because that's not true, because I do not know of every individual that will experience this journey. So I'll say for me personally, it was not about me needing to bare my soul on the page, but it did allow for me to go back and see myself from a different perspective. There have been many times when I was in this energy, feeling all whack and yucky and feeling unwanted and wondering why this, that, or the third was happening or not happening. And I will pour it all onto the page. But then the me that went back and read it like a month or two after, or a month or two after that, was able to see a very soft, very tender, very transparent, very vulnerable version of myself that spoke to the present day version of myself, that then went on to enhance the futuristic versions of myself. And so that's what I'm hoping that the journal will be utilized for, so that it can continue to enhance conversations that we have with ourselves. What I'm also hoping is that somehow, some way, we begin to incorporate the journal inside of our frequencies of quest mating or significant others, or even legal matrimony, if you will. Even though I think a lot of people are moving away from that because we're finding out that there are more lies inside of that frequency than a little bit. And that sometimes the natural essence of somebody can't be stuck in that. And you literally are doing yourself an injustice by figuring that if if you fucking without a marriage license, you somehow going to hell. Sheesh. Anywho, I'm gonna end it here. I think I am gonna do a follow-up though. And it's interesting because I almost feel like I'm in a frequency that want to go ahead on and knock it out now. But I see how I feel once I end this one and upload it if I have the urge to hit record again. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with me and I wish you well.